There's a headline that Fox News published on March 22nd, 2026, that most people scrolled past because they were focused on the Dimona missile strike and the U.S. president's 48-hour Hormuz ultimatum. The headline is this: U.S. warns of potential attacks as Iran-linked groups may target Americans. Not Iran itself. Iran-linked groups, plural, scattered across multiple countries, pre-positioned, pre-authorized, and now on an active threat footing according to the United States government's own public warning issued on the 23rd day of Operation Epic Fury. That warning changes the entire strategic picture of this war in a way that no single missile strike, no matter how close to a nuclear facility, has changed it before, because Iran has never fought alone. It has spent 4 decades building a network of allied armed groups across the Middle East, from Yemen to Lebanon to Iraq to Syria, that are now watching this conflict and calculating the moment and method of their own potential entry. And the U.S. government just told the world publicly that the threat of that entry has become real enough to warn Americans globally. That is what this video is about. Not speculation, not a worst-case scenario. A documented, government-confirmed warning about what happens when the conflict America is currently fighting against Iran alone expands to include the full weight of Iran's regional network. Let's establish the verified foundation, because everything in this analysis is grounded in what has been confirmed across your most credible news sources as of March 22nd, 2026. Fox News confirmed on March 22nd, 2026, through a Live Updates breaking news alert, U.S. warns of potential attacks as Iran-linked groups may target Americans. This is a U.S. government-issued warning, not a media speculation piece. When the American government issues a public threat advisory about Iran-linked groups targeting Americans, it is drawing on intelligence assessments from agencies that monitor the posture and communications of those groups in real time. The warning was issued on day 23 of Operation Epic Fury, which, according to CENTCOM's official government website, launched on February 28, 2026. CENTCOM has documented the full operational record of this campaign, including 2 carrier strike groups deployed, B-52 Stratofortress bombers in active strike rotation since March Tsikug, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers firing Tomahawk land attack missiles. The record also includes the loss of a KC-135 refueling aircraft over Iraq on March 12th, with all crew confirmed deceased, and 3 F-15s involved in a friendly fire incident in Kuwait on March 2nd. The war is 23 days old. The U.S. government is now warning that Iran's network of allied groups poses an active threat to Americans globally. Those 2 facts together define exactly what this video is examining. Now, let's talk about what Iran's regional network actually consists of, because the phrase Iran-linked groups is used constantly in coverage without anyone explaining what it means in operational terms. Iran's regional influence network, which analysts refer to as the Axis of Resistance, spans multiple countries and includes armed groups in Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Gaza. These groups are not theoretical. They have demonstrated military capability across the past decade, and specifically in the context of this conflict. Al Jazeera's live coverage on March 22nd confirmed that Israel's military is striking Hezbollah's civilian, as well as military wings, in an attempt to crush the group. This is a headline that confirms Hezbollah remains an active military organization operating under direct pressure from Israeli forces during this same conflict. AP's reporting confirmed that Israel strikes Hezbollah's civilian and military wings simultaneously. Al Jazeera confirmed that Iranian missile attacks hit central Tel Aviv, and that Iran claimed missile attacks on key Israeli military bases. The Al Jazeera death toll tracker, confirmed across multiple reporting cycles, showed preliminary figures of 1,444 dead in Iran, at least 18 in Israel, 13 U.S. soldiers killed, and 21 killed in Gulf states across 23 days of fighting. These are not the casualty figures of a contained bilateral conflict. They are the casualty figures of a conflict that has already spread across multiple countries and multiple types of actors. Here is what the U.S. government warning about Iran-linked groups targeting Americans specifically means for the war's next phase, and why it represents a threshold that makes the conflict structurally more dangerous than anything that has happened in the first 23 days. When Iran fights directly, as it has been doing since February 28th with ballistic missiles, drones, and Strait of Hormuz pressure, the United States knows exactly where the threat is coming from, and can respond through its established military architecture. 2 carrier strike groups, B-52 bombers, Arleigh Burke destroyers, Patriot batteries, THAAD systems. The command structure is clear, the target set is identifiable, and the escalation ladder, however dangerous it has become, has defined rungs. When Iran-linked groups across multiple countries begin targeting Americans, that clarity disappears. The threat becomes geographically dispersed, organizationally decentralized, and tactically unpredictable in ways that no air campaign or naval strike group is designed to manage. A ballistic missile launched from Iran can be tracked by radar from the moment it lifts off. A car bomb in Beirut cannot. A drone attack on an American facility in Baghdad cannot be intercepted by a carrier strike group operating in the Persian Gulf. That shift from concentrated to dispersed threat, from a single adversary to a network of actors across a dozen countries, is what the Fox News headline about Iran-linked groups targeting Americans is actually warning about. The Iraq dimension of this is the one that demands the most immediate attention, and it is the one most underreported in current coverage. CENTCOM's own official records show that a U.S. KC-135 refueling aircraft was lost over Iraq on March 12, 2026, with all crew members confirmed deceased. That loss did not occur over Iran. It occurred over Iraq, a country where American forces operate alongside a government that includes political parties with close ties to Iranian-aligned armed factions. Iraq hosts both American military infrastructure and Iran-aligned militia groups simultaneously, a contradiction that has defined the country's politics since 2003, and that becomes acutely dangerous the moment those militia groups receive authorization from Tehran to activate. AP confirmed on March 22nd that Iraq's drone innovation on the Ukraine front is being watched globally as a laboratory for new tactics. A detail that matters because drone technology developed in conflict zones transfers rapidly across the networks that Iran supports. The KC-135 loss over Iraq on March 12th is already confirmed. The U.S. government warning about Iran-linked groups targeting Americans on March 22nd extends that concern from a single incident to a systemic threat assessment. Now let's examine what the Yemen dimension adds to this picture, because it is the geographic element that most directly threatens the global shipping lanes that are already under catastrophic pressure from the Hormuz crisis. Bloomberg confirmed on March 22nd that the Strait of Hormuz crisis is forcing the U.S. president and importers to seek solutions, with crude oil at $98.23 per barrel, and Brent having exceeded $119 in the previous week, according to AP. The New York Times confirmed that gas prices have risen more than 30% in some American states in just 2 weeks. Bloomberg confirmed that U.S. diesel topped $5 per gallon, the highest level since December 2022. These energy price impacts are being driven by the Strait of Hormuz alone, the single choke point that Iran directly controls through its missile and drone campaign against shipping. Now add the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the choke point at the southern entrance to the Red Sea that sits off the coast of Yemen. The Bab el-Mandeb is 29 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, and approximately 12% of global trade passes through it annually, including a significant portion of the world's container shipping, oil tankers, and LNG carriers. Any armed group operating from Yemen that activates against shipping in the Bab el-Mandeb simultaneously with Iran's Hormuz pressure creates a two-choke point crisis that global shipping has never faced simultaneously in the modern era. Bloomberg's confirmed coverage of the Hormuz disruption describes it as reshaping the global gas market for years to come. A simultaneous Bab el-Mandeb disruption would compound that reshaping in ways that energy economists have not yet fully modeled in public. The Lebanon dimension is equally significant and equally confirmed across your sources. Al Jazeera confirmed on March 22nd that Lebanon's President Aoun warned that an Israeli attack on a key bridge in southern Lebanon was a prelude to a ground invasion. AP confirmed that Israeli strikes hit the Kasmieh Bridge near the coastal city of Tyre, Lebanon, on March 22nd, with photographs published. Al Jazeera confirmed that Israeli forces are attacking Lebanon simultaneously with their Iran operations. Bloomberg's Big Take confirmed that Israel's war to crush Hezbollah leaves a weakened Lebanon near ruin, with hundreds of thousands of people displaced and huge areas of the country damaged. What these confirmed facts describe is a second active front in the same war, running simultaneously with Operation Epic Fury, in a country that borders Israel and where Hezbollah maintains an estimated arsenal that defense analysts have assessed as one of the largest non-state military arsenals in the world. When the U.S. government issues a warning about Iran-linked groups targeting Americans, Hezbollah, which has demonstrated the operational reach to conduct attacks in South America, Europe, and the United States itself in previous decades, is part of the threat picture being assessed. Here is the economic dimension that connects the Iran-linked group's warning directly to your household bill, your grocery cost, and the stability of the financial system you depend on. Bloomberg confirmed on March 22nd that a fertilizer shock is escalating as new supply risks emerge from the Iran war. Agriculture traders are adjusting positions due to the escalating conflict in Iran, threatening to disrupt supply chains for corn, soybean meal, fertilizer, and sugar. AP confirmed that Iran war halted Qatar's helium output, threatening global technology supply chains, a disruption that affects semiconductors, medical imaging equipment, fiber optic cables, and scientific research across dozens of countries. Bloomberg confirmed that the shockwave of war is rippling through the global economy, with U.S. diesel above $5 per gallon as the most visible indicator of a disruption that reaches into manufacturing, transportation, agriculture, and retail. The New York Times confirmed that the U.S. economy may be insulated from high oil prices in aggregate terms, but American households are not, with gas prices up more than 30% in some states in 2 weeks. AP confirmed on March 22nd that spiking gas prices tied to the Iran war are set to eat up tax refunds that the U.S. president touted as an economic win for ordinary Americans. That is a direct, documented personal financial consequence, measurable in the bank accounts of the people watching this video. Now add the amplification effect of a wider proxy activation to that economic picture. If Iran-linked groups activate across multiple countries simultaneously, the insurance costs, the rerouting expenses, the military escort requirements, and the market uncertainty premium on every barrel of oil and every container of goods moving through the Middle East do not simply stay at current levels, they increase. Shipping companies that are already suspending routes through the Strait of Hormuz, confirmed in Bloomberg's coverage of Maersk and other operators, face the compounding calculation of whether any route through the broader Middle East remains viable. The Suez Canal, through which the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier group transited on March 5th, according to CENTCOM's official photographs, sits between the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. A simultaneous activation of armed groups in Yemen threatening the Bab el-Mandeb at the Red Sea's southern entrance and continued Hormuz pressure at the Gulf's eastern entrance creates a situation where the entire transit corridor from Asian manufacturing to European and American markets becomes uncertain. No insurance calculation can accurately price this in real time. The U.S. government warning about Iran-linked groups targeting Americans globally was issued into this context. It was issued on the same day that the U.S. president gave Iran a 48-hour ultimatum to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face strikes on its power plants. On the same day that Iran warned it would strike regional energy and water infrastructure in response. On the same day that an Iranian missile reached the vicinity of Israel's Dimona nuclear research facility, injuring at least 39 people according to Al Jazeera's confirmed tracker. And on the same day that Israel was simultaneously striking bridges in Lebanon and prosecuting an air campaign against Hezbollah. The warning about Iran-linked groups is not a standalone development. It is a piece of a picture that on March 22nd, 2026, looks like a conflict that began as a bilateral American-Iranian confrontation and is now expanding outward through every node of Iran's regional network simultaneously. AP confirmed on March 22nd that Congress is looking for the U.S. president's exit plan as the Iran war drags on, with 258 comments reflecting the level of public engagement with that question. The New York Times published a concurrent analysis. The U.S. president is eyeing an exit from Iran. Will he take it? Bloomberg reported simultaneously that the U.S. president floated winding down military efforts, while Hormuz hopes remain in sights. These three signals, from AP, The Times, and Bloomberg on the same morning as the Iran-linked group's warning, suggest that within American domestic politics, the exit question is now being asked in parallel with the military escalation. But exit from a conflict against Iran alone is a fundamentally different proposition from exit from a conflict in which Iran-linked groups across Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria have simultaneously activated against American interests and American personnel. The exit ramp that might exist in a purely bilateral confrontation becomes significantly more complex when the threat has dispersed across a network of actors who do not all operate under the same command authority. They cannot all be addressed by the same diplomatic channel. The human cost of this expansion, if it occurs, would not be borne by the people making the decisions. Al Jazeera's confirmed death toll tracker shows 1,144 dead in Iran, at least 18 in Israel, 13 American soldiers killed and 21 killed in Gulf states across 23 days of bilateral fighting. Those numbers were produced by a conflict involving two primary parties, and the Gulf states caught in the middle. If Iran-linked groups across multiple countries activate, the geographic scope of the human cost expands with the geographic scope of the conflict. Millions of Pakistani, Indian, Filipino, Bangladeshi, and African workers in the Gulf built their economic lives on the stability of a region that is now 23 days into active war. AP's photograph of an elderly man in New Delhi tying a gas cylinder to his scooter after collecting it from a depot captures what energy disruption looks like at the household level in the world's most populous country. A wider proxy activation does not reach that man as a geopolitical abstraction. It reaches him as the price of the next gas cylinder, the next electricity bill, the next bag of rice whose fertilizer cost was driven up by the disruption of Gulf gas supplies. The U.S. government warning about Iran-linked groups targeting Americans was not issued to create fear. Government threat advisories of this type are issued when intelligence assessments reach a threshold that requires public notification. The threshold has been reached on day 23 of this conflict. What comes next depends on decisions being made in Washington, Tehran, and in the command structures of every armed group across the Middle East. These groups are aligned with Iran's strategic objectives and are watching the 48-hour Hormuz ultimatum expire. Share this analysis immediately with everyone you know who wants to understand what this conflict actually looks like, beyond the missile counts and the market numbers. Because the US government's own warning tells you that the next phase of this war may not look like the first 23 days. And understanding that difference before it happens is the only preparation that is available to ordinary people who had no vote in starting any of this.